first day, and I think it's like March 11th or 12th, 2020. My first load I did from Michigan up to Wyoming, Minnesota, which is like just north of the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And I got that load on Friday. Got there at 6 a.m. on Saturday like they wanted me to do, but the Polaris factory that I delivered to wasn't open like I figured, and I had to sit there loaded until Monday, but they paid me extra. It was contracted at 80 miles, or 81, I think, or 81 cents a mile for the load, and then because I called in about that having to sit there till Monday, they did it up to $1 a mile, all miles loaded and the deadhead, so that ended up being like 160 extra. Well, I ended up spending 50 something of it in fuel in the last 4 days, coming back down here to S Beloit, which is just outside Chicago, Illinois. I spent 360 miles in the last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I guess today's Thursday, so the last 3 days worth, just trying to drive 100 miles a day, give or take. You know, I'd call in and then drive later on that day, and then call in and then drive again someplace else just so they see me moving. So far, this is the kind of company, like this morning, they're bidding on a load that's 1,000 miles. It's 122 to deadhead to get to it, since it's paid, and then 900 and something, so it's like a little over 1,000 miles to go someplace in Wisconsin down to Tennessee. And if they get that load, it's a straight through to 6 in the morning tomorrow, which I can do. It's just a 20-hour shot. I can do it. I have no problems doing it. It's just the thing is, this company, it seems like, which is both a good and a bad thing, but it seems like they, at least in my experience, they don't go like above or any loads below like 800 miles, which is fine by me. You know, I like that, doing that, except for the problem is you end up waiting someplace 3 or 4 days for them to find a load that's good enough to do it, for them to contract to do. And so you end up living this life of 2 or 3 days where they're sitting someplace, and then you get an 800 or 1,000 mile run, and you drive all day, all night to do it. And then 2 or 3 days of sitting down there, probably, I don't know, I'll find out. But if it were up to me, if I had to do, let's say it's 1,500 miles that you get in a week, whether it's one load or it's 5 days worth of 300 mile loads, to me, I'd rather do the shorter ones of 300 miles every 5 days, I mean, for every day for 5 days, just to be busy, than do 1,500 miles in one shot. I'm okay with doing the 1,500 miles in one shot if it was like every other day, you know. If I did 1,000 miles tonight, ran till 6 in the morning to Tennessee, then they gave me maybe the day and that evening or something to sleep, and then by the following morning they call me for another 1,000 mile run back the other way, I'd be fine with doing that, you know, every other day, and give me enough time to sleep in between times. I'd be making money up the yin-yang and have enough time to sleep. And I'd be okay with that, but this sitting around for 3 days at a shot until I get a bid, and then this ain't even a guaranteed, he's just bidding on it right now for 1,000 miles to see. I don't know. I mean, I found out some things the other day. That's not the contract that I originally signed. The contract that I signed was the old one that had percentage with the 60-40 and all that, but now they're saying the truck, the van, gets 81 cents a mile no matter what the load is, and the difference being it gets all the loaded miles and the deadhead. Everything that Roadrunner runs, makes it run for, we get 81 cents a mile for doing both the deadhead and loaded. Which that's where it makes the difference, because this deadhead they're doing at a shot is like a good 100 mile deadhead every time you go to get loaded. And it's both a good thing and a bad thing, because then the driver gets 40 cents a mile, which I'm okay with, but then I get deadhead and the fuel surcharge, and then basically the fuel difference of it, kind of the way it worked out on the last load. Basing it off the last load, I pretty much get 50-50, which is what I would have signed up for anyway with the 60-40 and the fuel. Ends up being the same. And then my fleet owner was saying that if I if I dropped off a load, let's say I was up there in Minnesota, I dropped that load off, and if I had stayed there for 3 days with a 100-mile radius of where I dropped at, 72 hours they're contracted to move me to someplace else if they can't bid again on something else. So technically it could have just sat there for 3 days, and then if nothing else got paid to move 100 miles down the road. The thing about that is everything is split in half, so the 100 miles down the road would cost like $10 in fuel, give or take, 10 or $15 in fuel, depending on the fuel price. And I would only get 50 of that. Not even 50, not even 100, because the contract did it at 80 cents. So I figure we get $80 for the 100 miles. Or wait, something like that. And anyway, I'd end up with like 30 or $40, and then part of that would be fuel, and I'd end up getting paid. In 3 days, I'd end up getting paid like $20 to move someplace else, and that's not even a guarantee. I mean, that's only 100 miles down the road, but you know, guarantee that they'll find you something else down there. In which case, you sat there 3 days, or my other option is to drive on my own fuel, which is 360 miles worth, was probably give or take 40 or $50, give or take, because you figure $10 for every 100 miles, roughly. But I'm sitting here spending $10 a night in fuel on the S heater, and I noticed that. I went and bought me a $20 sleeping bag, because it's a lot easier to buy $20 up front for the sleeping bag and then just live in the sleeping bag, because outside of the sleeping bag, it's not bad. It's nice and warm in that sleeping bag all night long, and then I don't have to spend $10 every night. Which, don't get me wrong, $10 every night for fuel to stay nice and toasty in here for at least 6 hours that S heater will run. That's nice, but that's, if I was driving loaded all the time, it would be worth it. Because $10 out of you for every load would be, to me, would be well worth it to stay heated in here. But if you're sitting here day after day after day, it doesn't make sense. So I'm starting to see that this company, at least for right now anyway, is one of those companies that sits there all week long trying to bid on just the 800-mile runs, which I'm okay with, because when they get those 800-mile runs, it makes up for the difference of the week. I could still average 2,000 miles this week in a 3-day run. It's just sitting there 3 days doing nothing, and then drive all day, all night. In my back of my mind, I'm like, why not spread those 3 days out? And I would have been fine with the short runs. 300 miles a day, because then you're busy and you're not stressed out. But this is a true expedite load if they do get it, because it is some kind of dealio with the factory, and the factory is really badly wanting some kind of part that they're all bidding on. And I'm 122 miles away from the pickup, and just under 900 miles to drop it. So I'm looking at 1,000 or 1,030 or something different miles. And the bonus factor in there is you get like an extra $100 pretty much if you get there at 6 a.m. as they want it, because they want this load that bad, which is possible. But it's basically saying I have to drive almost all the way through all my breaks, and usually do like 5-minute breaks every 2 hours to be able to get there in time to do it, which I'm okay with doing. Just make a lot of little breaks as you get tired here and there. I mean, I just did that 800-mile run the other day, and it went bad. But if you get that little bit of a bonus, that would count for some of the fuel, because it's 1,000 miles. It's going to take at least $150 worth of fuel, because that 800-mile run took $115 roughly. So that 1,000-mile run would probably do 115 fuel. Comes out of my pocket on my end, but if they give me that $100 bonus, you're pretty much taking care of the fuel again, and then I get like a $50 or $60 fuel surcharge, and between the two, the load's fuel pretty much pays for itself, and I just get the portion of half, and he gets half. My fleet owner again gets half, like the other half of it. So it basically ends up being like $500 by the end of the deal. If I get it, they're bidding on it. We'll see. But that's the latest of the updates. I don't know when I'll get this uploaded, because just as soon as I hit the upload button, that's probably when they'll call back and say, here you go, take it and go. So this might not be uploaded for a day or two until I get the time to do it. Yeah, interesting company I work for, though, because theoretically, I can take the loads that they give me and get paid for all the dead end and the loaded, sit someplace where I'm dropped the last load off at, under 100 miles away from where I dropped the load off at, and then either get paid to move or take the next load out of wherever they're at. And Roadrunners supposedly will only send you to freight areas where they can get you freight back out, or they will pay for it themselves in 3 days worth of bidding. Supposedly. But that's the whole deal with the contract, because we're contracted on with them at a flat rate. So theoretically, if I wanted to just sit around someplace, I could use hardly any actual fuel expense on my personal fuel expense on my own if I just planned it right and went right straight to a Walmart or straight to a truck stop or whatever I needed to sit there for what could be 3 days at a shot until I get a good enough load for a Roadrunner to bid on it to do it. So I don't know how long this company, I mean, I like the idea of loading long miles like that, but I really don't want to sit someplace all week long and then take a 1,000-mile run. And sit someplace all week long and then take a 1,000-mile run. I mean, it just doesn't. It's kind of playing both ends of the game, you know, making me sit all week long and then making me drive all day, all night. You know, I mean, there's a lot of little shorter runs that I could have made that week that would make the same amount of miles. You know, and wouldn't be as much stress to the driver, so to speak. And like I said before, I'd be fine with it if it was 1,000 miles one day and then I had a rest for the whole day, all night, and then 1,000 miles the next day. You know what I mean? Just go that route or something. And I get used to that. This whole wait all week long and then hopefully get a 1,000-mile run by the end of the week. It really makes you wonder if you're going to get a paycheck worth it. So far this week, unless this bid comes through and this load comes through, so far, it's Thursday morning and I haven't made nothing this week. And because of fuel and everything that's held back, I got the money for fuel, but I'm about $350 in the hole, give or take, to start out with, and it wouldn't be no problem if I'd have loads, and then I could easily pay that back off, especially 2,000, 1,000-mile run here and a 1,000-mile run, on the weekend or something. I'd pay back the gas for this week and be ahead for next week. Come and go, man. I'm just sitting here in South Beloit at the Flying J. There's like 3 of them here or something. Waiting to see. And I drove 360 miles worth of my own fuel the other day. Not all in one shot, just, $100 a day. And it's been the last 3 days. So a little over 100 miles a day that I've spent, call them up and then drive another 100 miles. Call them up and drive another 100 miles. Because you got to give them time in each place to look for freight for you. But I'm not going to sit up in Minnesota for longer than a day. If they can't find it the first day, they aren't going to find it by day 3, usually. So, at least in my opinion. If they really want me to get loaded, then call me up and get me loaded. Anyway, see you on the next round. Peace.